In April 1925, 3 men walked into the Amazon looking for a city. The last letter came from a place called Dead Horse Camp. A surveyor with 30 years of experience wrote down where he was standing. The coordinates were wrong, and he was far too good at his job to have made that mistake. This is Percy Fawcett. Nobody ever found him, his son, or the friend who went with them. But 70 years later, someone found the city. Percy Fawcett was not a crank with a compass. He was born in Devon in 1867, trained by the Royal Geographical Society, and between 1906 and 1924 he led 7 expeditions into South America and came back from every one of them. He mapped borders nobody had mapped. He survived rivers, disease, and country no European had crossed. Among explorers of his generation, he was considered close to unkillable. And somewhere in those 20 years, he became convinced of something his colleagues thought was absurd: that the Amazon was not empty, that it had once held a civilization, and that its ruins were still out there, waiting. The idea came from a document, Manuscript 512, written in 1753, in which Portuguese explorers described stumbling on a ruined stone city deep in the Brazilian interior. Plazas, arches, statues, abandoned and silent. Historians dismissed it. Fawcett did not. He gave the city a single letter. He called it Z. He tried twice before. In 1921, he went in with a team, and the jungle broke them. Heat, insects, disease. He went back alone the same year, and came out 3 months later with nothing. By 1925, he was 57 years old, and he had run out of patience. So he took his son. Jack Fawcett was 22, and he had trained for this his whole life. Raleigh Rimell was his closest friend. Neither had ever been on an expedition. The Royal Geographical Society and the Rockefellers helped fund it. Newspapers bought the story in advance. When they left the town of Cuiabá in April 1925, they were among the most watched men in the world. Fawcett left one instruction behind: if they did not return, nobody was to come looking. He knew exactly what the risk was, and he did not want it spent on him. On the 29th of May, they reached the place he called Dead Horse Camp, the spot where 5 years earlier he had been forced to shoot his own horse and turn back. From there he sent his last letter to his wife Nina. He told her the season was good. He told her she need have no fear of failure. And then they sent the guides back and walked into unmapped country and were never seen again. But the letter had a problem in it that nobody noticed for years. The coordinates Fawcett wrote down for Dead Horse Camp do not match the coordinates he had recorded for the same camp on his earlier expedition. Same place, 2 different positions. This is a man who mapped international borders for a living. Historians who have studied it mostly agree he was far too careful to have made that error by accident, which means the last thing Percy Fawcett did before disappearing was make sure that if anyone followed him, they would be looking in the wrong place. He got his wish. Nobody has ever found the trail. What the world did instead was send people after him. A lot of them. The first major search left in 1927 and came back with a story about Fawcett being killed by a local chief. It did not hold up. More followed: aircraft, missionaries, journalists, wealthy amateurs. By 1934, the Brazilian government was so overwhelmed it banned search parties without permission, and people kept going anyway. You will often hear that 100 of those searchers died looking for him. It is repeated in almost every telling of this story, including some very good ones. It is almost certainly not true. There are no reliable figures. The 100 came from a single estimate, and careful accounting suggests the real number was a small fraction of that. But something in the story kept pulling people in, and some of them genuinely did not come back. And with no body and no wreckage, the rumors had nowhere to stop. In 1932, a Swiss trapper named Stephen Ratton reported meeting an old white-bearded Englishman held captive by a tribe deep in the bush. The sighting was hundreds of miles from where Fawcett vanished. Others said he had found Z and stayed, that he was living as a god among an isolated people, that he had gone mad and never wanted to be found. In the 1950s, there was a story about his shrunken head. None of it was ever substantiated. A medium who was handed his scarf claimed in a trance to see the party murdered and thrown into a lake. That was treated at the time as evidence. The one object that ever surfaced was a gold signet ring found in a shop in Cuiabá in 1979, engraved with the Fawcett family motto, "Hardships hold no fear." The most credible account came from the people who were actually there. In 1952, the anthropologist Orlando Villas-Boas reported that the Kalapalo people had told him the party was killed and produced bones he believed were Fawcett's. Testing later showed they were not his. The account itself has held up better than the bones did. 3 exhausted, seriously ill men, deep in territory where a breach of protocol carried a real cost, moving further than anyone could follow. Nobody can confirm it. But it is the version that requires the fewest miracles. And for 70 years, that was the whole story. A famous man walked into the trees looking for something that did not exist, and the jungle took him. Then the archaeologists arrived. In 1992, an American anthropologist named Michael Heckenberger began working in the Upper Xingu with the Kuikuro people, whose ancestors had lived there long before Fawcett. What they documented was not a lost city. It was more than 15 of them. A central plaza town, satellite towns arranged toward the cardinal directions, and the whole cluster wired together by dead straight roads, some of them 50 meters across, engineered with curbs and causeways and bridges over the wetlands. The largest of them covered around 50 hectares around a great circular plaza, ringed by defensive ditches meters deep and walls of standing logs. Around it lay worked country, manioc fields, orchards, dams, ponds for farming fish, managed forest. Heckenberger estimated the regional population in the tens of thousands, possibly 50,000 people. And it sits in the Upper Xingu, the exact region Fawcett was walking into when he disappeared. So here is the part that is genuinely hard to sit with. Fawcett was looking for stone, arches, statues, masonry, the city from the Manuscript. What was actually there was built from earth, wood, and deliberately managed forest. It is entirely possible that he walked through it. Across the roads, past the ditches, over the earthworks, and saw jungle, because he had already decided what a city was supposed to look like. He was wrong about the stone. He was right about the civilization. Almost nobody in his generation believed the Amazon could hold organized populous societies, and he staked his life on it. And the ground proved him closer to right than any of them. What we still do not know is what happened after the guides turned back. No bodies, no camp, no wreckage, not one confirmed trace of Percy Fawcett, or his son Jack, or Raleigh Rimell has ever been recovered. 3 men walked into the trees, looking for a city that turned out to be real, and the forest closed behind them, and it has not opened since. If you want to see the next case history can't fully close, subscribe.